In feudal societies, heirs were everything. A firstborn, especially a son, was an assurance that not only one's bloodline would continue, but also that one's legacy would be passed on in name. Even in the history of A Song of Ice and Fire, the firstborn son was found to trump any daughters of a noble lord or king. And so, for good reason, great pressure and expectation was placed on these heirs, along with unrivaled adoration. But few families in the Seven Kingdoms and beyond only had one child, especially just a single son. Second sons were not as doted upon as their elder kin, but in George R.R. Martin's masterwork, they seemed more important than many in their own world would dare to believe. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. In A Song of Ice and Fire, some of the most important characters are second sons: Eddard Stark, Stannis Baratheon, Tyrion Lannister, Sandor Clegane, Euron Greyjoy, Viserys Targaryen, Balon Swann. Even Jon Snow, a bastard, is the second son of Eddard Stark, at least as all are led to believe. The aforementioned names played significant parts in the greatest and most important events of the modern world of Ice and Fire, events which still have yet to reach their destined conclusions. These men, despite an initial lack of status as firstborn heirs to heirlooms, land, or titles, altered the course of history in their own ways, prompting serious thought as to the importance of second sons in A Song of Ice and Fire. So, who are the most important second sons in George R.R. Martin's grand narrative? What roles did they play? And why were they made to be so crucial to the story? Let's explore. Eddard Stark. A stoic, loyal man, content with allowing his brother to claim the seat of Winterfell and title of Warden of the North, Eddard was forced into action during the initial days of Robert's Rebellion. His father and brother were killed by the Mad King, catapulting him to a seat that he never believed would be his. Together with his best friends, he toppled a dynasty in his younger years, and settled down for a life of duty and honor in the ancestral seat of his forefathers. His cool, reserved nature was that of an ideal Northman, and he was known amongst highborn and peasantry alike as one who held honor above all other virtues. Eddard made mistakes, undoubtedly, but his commitment to his family, his position, and his king was undeniable. Yet, this honor and loyalty would be his downfall. Unable to refuse his friend, the king he helped to install, Eddard descended to King's Landing to serve as Hand of the King, and embroiled himself in the cesspool of politics. His allies disappeared one by one, and he became ensnared in a trap partly of his own making, losing his head for his honor. Eddard's death would kickstart the War of the Five Kings, and thus the impact of his entire life would be unmistakable. He played a crucial role in usurping the Targaryens. He led one of the great houses for many years, and he was the first major man to fall in a conflict that would bring Westeros to its knees, and truly kickstart the story of A Song of Ice and Fire. Stannis Baratheon. The middle brother of three, the Lord of Dragonstone watched as his elder brother Robert ascended to the Iron Throne for love and for conquest. While Robert enjoyed war and women, and the youngest Baratheon, Renly, appreciated the fineries of life, Stannis had a mind only for duty. He was iron-willed and steel-spined, displaying leadership during a deadly siege and serving upon the small council of his brother. Yet despite his record of service and penchant for justice, Stannis received no goodwill nor favors for his deeds. He was passed over for the seat of Storm's End, and then for the role of Hand of the King, and then for the kingship itself. At this, he drew his line. Stannis staked his claim during the War of the Five Kings, and by all laws of Westeros, he was the rightful king. Nevertheless, he was forced to fight for every inch and every mile. Stannis suffered multiple defeats before he turned his burning heart north. Encouraged to fight the true battle to be had, the battle for the realm, he took up residence at the Wall, playing the part of the prince that was promised, even if he knew in his heart he was not the hero of prophecy. Stannis Baratheon was a cold man, a quiet man, a stoic man, but he never shirked his responsibilities, and thus shaped the realm of Westeros for better and worse during the events of A Song of Ice and Fire. Tyrion Lannister, the dwarf, the imp, the monster of the West. While he was misshapen and unpleasant to look upon, Tyrion Lannister possessed one of the most potent weapons in all the Seven Kingdoms: his mind. With his cunning and his wit, the imp greatly shaped and drove the narrative, especially as he was forced to mature. From a man lavished in luxury to mask his grotesque identity, to Hand of the King, to Kinslayer, to fugitive, Tyrion Lannister held many roles. He stood his ground amongst the shrewdest politicians in the realm, creating alliances and making enemies with precision. He felled the most ruthless man of the age, his father, Lord Tywin, in an act of rage stemming from years of abuse and manipulation, and he took to the narrow sea in search of a new life when he thought his own forfeit. The effects of Tyrion's actions were felt far and wide, and for good reason. Not only did he play the Game of Thrones, he defined it. The murder of Tywin alone altered the course of history in the twilight days of the War of the Five Kings, possibly condemning his own house to collapse. Sandor Clegane, the Hound, the younger brother to a cruel, sadistic behemoth, and the man who often felt the brunt of the Mountain's wrath. Sandor was scarred by his elder brother Gregor, planting the seeds of a forever fear of fire in his heart. Yet also, the cruel words and deeds of the Mountain spurned the Hound away, driving him to cast in his lot as a sworn shield of the crown, simply to find meaning. But with the fall of the Starks and the sweeping gales of the War of the Five Kings, Sandor Clegane displayed the depth and complexity of his character. Certainly, he had attempted to drown his sorrows and responsibilities in wine, women, and blood, but none could run from such things forever. With both daughters of Winterfell, Sansa and Arya, left without role models or protectors, mothers or fathers, Sandor took it upon himself to provide solace to each in turn. This was no conscious effort, nor a twisted form of self-satisfaction. This was true purpose, though the Hound's methods were sometimes unseemly, and his intent unclear. He offered Sansa a shoulder upon which to cry in her loneliest days in King's Landing, and ferried Arya across the Riverlands, and provided her companionship as she sought revenge, same as himself. While none would consider Sandor Clegane a hero, his actions when the needs of others were most dire largely proved them otherwise. Euron Greyjoy, the Crow's Eye, younger brother to a self-proclaimed king, yet the most powerful man in his family. Over the course of his life, Euron became known far and wide as a ruthless, relentless man, but amongst his own kin, his reputation was far grimmer. At best, his family found him antagonistic. At worst, abusive. Exiled for sins against his brothers with the passing of the lordship to his elder brother Balon, Euron sailed far and wide, studying dark arts and traversing foul waters. He claimed to learn the secrets and recognize the existence of many gods, but he was the least pious of men. The Crow's Eye had respect for naught but might and debauchery, and his return to the Iron Islands after the death of his brother confirmed he had learned nothing in his years away. His foreign treasures and silver tongue earned him the Seastone Chair, and he immediately set to work in building his Ironborn empire. The rumors on the wind of Euron's forthcoming plans remain even more ominous still, but it was clear from the moment he re-emerged that his presence in Westeros brought with it ill tidings for the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. Viserys Targaryen, the Beggar King, the last trueborn Targaryen male in the realm after the bloodbath of Robert's Rebellion. Though Viserys was only in a single entry of A Song of Ice and Fire, his characterization was still clear. Even without great knowledge of his ancestors, it was plain to see he was nothing close to them. His insecurity oozed off the page. He was a king with no kingdom, believing himself worthy of the Iron Throne, but without the army or loyalty to support his sentiment. As his sister Daenerys, originally meant only to be a bargaining chip on his way to power, surpassed him in importance, Viserys became both more desperate and imploring. Soon, he became a walking jape amongst the Dothraki, and perished beneath a crown of molten gold, placed upon his head as punishment for his insolence. Viserys was generally intolerable, but an empathetic aspect existed to his character. He was born too late to experience the grandeur of Targaryen's past, but born just early enough to be subject to his house's fall. Why should he be the one who must face so much hardship when his ancestors had ruled Westeros for centuries? When contemplating these questions, his bitterness and resentment were understandable. Balon Swann, stout man of the Kingsguard, at war with his own brother. Balon Swann was a strong and able knight who found himself as a member of the White Cloaks in service to the crown. Even Sir Jaime Lannister himself approved of Balon's appointment, and the second son of House Swann proved himself worthy on countless occasions. He was loyal and obedient, all that king and court could ask of such a knight, even if his actions served insidious commands. Despite ending up on an opposite side of the War of the Five Kings from his own elder brother, with their father stuck neutral in between, Sir Balon never wavered from the cause in which he believed, leading to a rise in his reputation amongst the lords, ladies, and knights of the realm. So much was he respected, that Queen Regent Cersei Lannister tasked him with retrieving her daughter from her forced stay in Dorne, a task not for the faint of heart or weak of will. Jon Snow, the bastard of Winterfell, Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, traitor, oathbreaker, hero. One of the primary protagonists and drivers of the narrative, Jon Snow was technically the second son of Lord Eddard Stark, though this may, and likely will, be proven untrue. In the canon of A Song of Ice and Fire, Jon is still considered Ned's bastard and his second overall son. Jon Snow grew up beside the children of one of the greatest houses in the realm, yet in truth, he had no place amongst them. While he trained and dined and played with Robb, Theon, and Bran, he knew in his heart he would never truly be a Stark. And so, the Night's Watch called to him, for his uncle Benjen had taken the Black and was First Ranger. Yet, Jon quickly learned that life amongst the Black Brothers was a far cry from that in a noble castle. He was forced to swallow pride, rage, and guilt in order to keep to his oaths. He was forced to kill, lie, and love to break them for the greater good. He was forced to grow up, to learn, and to lead when he stood amidst lesser men, and his only reward was a flurry of knives between the ribs. Jon Snow's actions made a profound impact on the world, and because of his potential lineage, as well as the return of certain arcane arts, he may yet still have a primary role to play. But above all, Jon was a reflection of important traits, especially those found in second sons. He was loyal to those he trusted, but often conflicted beneath the surface. Never at ease or comfortable with his status, he took more to stoic contemplation and action than grandiose speeches. Though he often attempted to reflect an assured outward appearance, he doubted many of his decisions, especially after gaining influence amongst his peers. Jon Snow was a man without a true place in the world, stuck in the midst of sure-minded people with their grand thoughts and plans, just like many other second sons. All aforementioned characters were prominent second sons in the narrative of A Song of Ice and Fire. Some featured more prominently than others, and all ranged far and wide across the spectrum of good and evil. Yet, one further common factor united them regardless of faction, background, or projected future. They all, as second sons, eventually rose to be the most prominent members of their family, at least amongst their siblings. Whether for wholesome or horrific reasons, all these second sons became renowned in their own way, and all changed the course of Westerosi history during and after Robert's Rebellion. Especially in the setting of the world of Ice and Fire, second sons were put at a great disadvantage. This was not so great such as that faced by women or bastards, but it was a disadvantage nonetheless. All spoils went to the eldest son. Lords handed their heirs the best brides, lands, and seats, while the second sons received such things only through great tragedy or betrayal. Instead, second sons had to forge their own paths and create their own tales worth telling. Some did this through the urging of others, some through debauchery and reckless abandon, and some through stoic, calculated action. But all the prominent second sons of A Song of Ice and Fire cemented themselves as men of import and worth in their own right. And A Song of Ice and Fire became the story of second sons. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here, I'd love to have you. Visit my website russellawellsauthor.com for exclusive reviews, fiction, and more. And sign up for my mailing list for free exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. And, like always, I will see you next time.